Has the world been living under a false sense of security? A carefully constructed illusion shattered in early 2026? This is the stark question that now confronts diplomats, intelligence analysts, and ordinary citizens alike. For years, the international community has walked a tightrope with Iran, balancing sanctions with diplomacy, inspections with deep-seated suspicion. Now, a torrent of allegations, collectively branded online as 2026 exposed, suggests that while the world was watching the front door, a secret nuclear weapons program was being assembled in the basement. This essay will not pretend to have the final answer, but it will meticulously unpack the layers of this complex and perilous issue, separating the solid ground of verified fact from the shifting sands of speculation and outright disinformation. The urgency surrounding this topic cannot be overstated, as it taps into our most primal fears of atomic devastation. The very phrase nuclear bombshell conjures images of mushroom clouds and geopolitical chaos. The 2026 revelations, whether they ultimately prove to be a smoking gun or a cleverly orchestrated hoax, have forced the issue back to the forefront of global consciousness. They matter profoundly because the existence of a clandestine nuclear arsenal in one of the world's most volatile regions would not just be a game changer, it would tear up the rulebook entirely. Our investigation begins in the present, on this day, April 13, 2026, with the digital and diplomatic air thick with accusation and denial. Okay, let's begin. This is no academic debate. The consequences reach far beyond the Middle East. Confirming an Iranian bomb would upend regional stability and trigger a chain reaction. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, each could rush to match, fueling a nuclear arms race. A web of nuclear tripwires would form. A misstep or skirmish could spiral into catastrophe. Globally, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the cornerstone of arms control, would be shaken. Its grand bargain, restraint for access, and progress on disarmament, would fray. If a signatory cheated in secret, incentives to violate would grow and diplomacy could unravel. Markets would convulse, oil could spike as the Strait of Hormuz comes under threat. Energy and manufacturing costs would surge, trade and supply chains would buckle. Families from London to Tokyo to Buenos Aires would feel it, at the pump and at home. Israel would see an existential threat. Proxies in Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon could be emboldened. Pressure for preemptive strikes would rise, risking escalation that draws in major powers. The stakes are enormous. To grasp the gravity of the 2026 allegations, one must first look backward. Iran's nuclear story did not begin with recent headlines, but has its roots in the 1950s under the Shah, with the Atoms for Peace program supported by the United States. This decades-long history is a crucial backdrop. It demonstrates a persistent national ambition to master the atomic cycle, publicly declared peaceful. However, this history is also riddled with secrecy and obfuscation that fueled international suspicion. The most significant turning point came in 2002 when an opposition group revealed undeclared facilities. Natanz, the uranium enrichment plant. Arak, the heavy water facility. This revelation proved Iran had a clandestine program for nearly 2 decades and altered global perception. This pattern of concealment is a recurring theme that gives weight to new concerns. Following the 2002 disclosures, the IAEA began a painstaking investigation. The IAEA uncovered evidence of past experiments and studies that could relate to a weapons program. These activities, which Iran said had been halted, included work on high-explosive detonators and studies on missile reentry vehicles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. This historical context is not proof of current wrongdoing, but it establishes a precedent for skepticism. It shows the country possessed technical knowledge and the willingness to hide sensitive work from international eyes. The 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, was a landmark diplomatic attempt. In exchange, lifting of crippling economic sanctions. Iran agreed to stringent limitations on its nuclear program and submitted to the most intensive inspections regime ever negotiated. For a time, the deal appeared to be working. The IAEA repeatedly verified compliance. But the United States' withdrawal in 2018 changed the dynamic. The reimposition of sanctions led Iran to gradually exceed the deal's limits. This tit-for-tat escalation brought us to heightened tension. Iran is enriching uranium to higher purities than ever before. That shrinks the theoretical breakout time for enough fissile material for a single bomb. These past activities form the bedrock of 2026 anxieties. The historical record shows a pattern: a public program for energy, hidden program revealed, a period of diplomacy and constraint, followed by a breakdown of that diplomatic framework. This cycle creates fertile ground for suspicion. The world remembers Natanz and Iraq. It recalls the IAEA's long struggle to get answers about past military dimensions. This history of doubt gives the 2026 exposed narrative immediate, powerful resonance. It forces the world to ask once again, what is really happening behind closed doors? So that's the backdrop. Amidst the storm of speculation, it is crucial to anchor ourselves to the confirmed, verifiable facts, not derived from anonymous leaks, but from the official public reporting of the IAEA and from Iran's own declared actions. The first and most fundamental fact is clear. Iran operates a substantial and advanced nuclear program. Bombshell nuclear power plant, Natanz fuel enrichment plant, Fordow fuel enrichment plant, Iraq heavy water reactor. The existence and general purpose of these sites are not in dispute. They are monitored by the international community. A second undeniable fact is Iran's growing stockpile of enriched uranium. According to the IAEA's regular quarterly reports, Iran has been steadily increasing production and, as of early 2026, possesses a significant quantity enriched to 60% purity. While this is not weapons grade is typically 90% or higher, experts widely agree the technical leap from 60 to 90% is relatively small and quick. That means breakout time is now shorter than ever, measured in weeks rather than months or years. Third, we have the confirmed reality of the 2015 nuclear deal's erosion. Following the U.S. withdrawal in 2018, Iran began to systematically and openly breach these limits, installed advanced centrifuges, and curtailed IAEA access, including camera recordings from its workshops. These actions are not secret. They are announced by Tehran and verified by the IAEA. Finally, there is the historical evidence of a past weaponization program, the AMAD plan, documented via the nuclear archive obtained in 2018, including warhead design efforts, high explosive tests, and missile integration studies. While Iran dismisses this as fabricated, the IAEA has said the archive appears authentic and that Iran has failed to provide a credible explanation. So, those are the hard facts on the ground. The phrase 2026 exposed is not an official report, but a media-driven phenomenon, a banner under which a cascade of new documents, images, testimonies coalesced in the early months of this year. The first major component was a massive leak of internal documents, computer models of nuclear chain reactions, engineering schematics for high-precision explosive lenses, and logistical plans for moving sensitive materials between undeclared sites. The second element is a new wave of high-resolution satellite imagery from commercial companies and government agencies, showing unusual activity at locations not part of Iran's declared program. One site, deep in mountainous terrain, appears to be a deeply buried tunnel complex with extensive security and ventilation systems. Another shows evidence of high explosive testing based on blast scarring and ground disturbance. While analysts agree activity is happening, there is fierce debate over its purpose. Skeptics argue the tunneling could be for a conventional missile command center and the blast marks from standard munitions development. The third, and perhaps most humanly compelling piece, is the testimony of a figure dubbed the Tehran technician, a protected mid-level engineer working on miniaturizing a nuclear warhead for missile delivery. In encrypted communications with a Western news agency, the source provided technical details about metallurgical challenges and trigger sequencing that experts found plausible, though not definitively provable. This account provides narrative glue connecting leaked documents and satellite photos to a tangible, human-led effort. However, the bombshell is fraught with questions of authenticity and motive. Critics note digital documents can be expertly forged, and the timing, coinciding with a critical diplomatic juncture, is suspicious. Satellite interpretation is as much art as science, and powerful actors have misread such data to justify agendas. The Tehran technician remains an unverified ghost, a voice in the digital ether. Is this the definitive exposé of a generation or a masterful information operation designed to push the world toward conflict? As of today, the evidence is compelling enough to raise alarm, but not conclusive enough to provide a final answer. In the complex calculus of nuclear proliferation, there is a clear red line: weaponization. A country can enrich uranium, build reactors, and study nuclear physics for peaceful purposes. But once it designs and tests non-nuclear components to detonate a core, the explosive package, the precise triggers, the arming and fusing systems, it has crossed a critical threshold, from having a nuclear option to actively building a bomb. One discussed piece of evidence in the 2026 leaks alleges a series of cold tests using depleted uranium or tungsten in place of a fissile core to test an implosion system. These tests perfect the symmetrical compression needed to initiate a chain reaction. The documents purportedly include diagnostic sensor data, high-speed footage, and post-test metal analyses. If authenticated, this would be as close to a smoking gun as possible, with no plausible civilian application, exclusively relevant to an implosion-type device. However, this strongest evidence is also the most fiercely contested. Experts cite terminology inconsistencies. Others say data could be simulated or drawn from inertial confinement fusion research. The IAEA is cautious. AMAD provides a baseline. The key question: was it abandoned or driven deeper underground? Until verified samples, authenticated logs, or on-the-record witnesses emerge, the turning point remains shrouded in plausible deniability. In this high-stakes environment, it is tempting to demand absolute certainty, a simple yes or no. Yet one crucial reality: the profound limit of what we can know from the outside. The information available to the public, and to many governments, is inherently incomplete. The most sensitive intelligence is held tightly within a few world powers, with sophisticated satellites and human sources providing a richer picture than what is disclosed. They may have compelling proof, but choose not to reveal it to protect sources. This secrecy creates an information asymmetry, complicating debate. Governments may act on intelligence they cannot share, a trust me scenario with a fraught history, notably 2003. Conversely, a government might have exonerating intelligence but not share it, leaving false allegations to fester in public. We must also contend with deliberate disinformation. In the 21st century geopolitical arena, information is a weapon. State and non-state actors can fabricate documents, manipulate satellite imagery, create fake whistleblowers. A nation seeking to provoke conflict with Iran would have motive to engineer a credible bombshell leak. Disentangling genuine leaks from fabrications requires immense resources, and uncertainty often remains. We can know the official story from the IAEA. We can know public statements from Tehran. We can see the satellite photos. We can read translated leaked documents. But we cannot fully know the context, the hidden motives, or the classified intelligence that completes the picture. This is not a satisfying conclusion, but it is an honest one, A necessary act of intellectual humility to weigh evidence, demand high standards of proof, and remain vigilant against complacency and hysteria. We stand today, on April 13, 2026, at a precarious fork in the road. The question of whether Iran is secretly pursuing a nuclear weapon has moved from a chronic, low-grade fever to an acute crisis, largely fueled by the 2026 exposed allegations. Our journey has shown there are undeniable facts that warrant serious concern, namely, Iran's high-purity uranium enrichment and its history of concealment. But the most explosive new claims of an active weaponization program remain unproven. We have a collection of compelling but contested documents, ambiguous satellite images, the ghost-like testimony of a single whistleblower. This is not enough to form a conclusive judgment, but it is more than enough to demand the world's full and urgent attention. If the international community acts as if the allegations are true, moving toward military confrontation or crippling sanctions, without irrefutable proof, it risks sparking a catastrophic conflict based on flawed intelligence. The economic and human cost would be immeasurable, shattering global trust for a generation. Conversely, dismissing the claims as mere propaganda risks waking up to a nuclear-armed Iran, triggering a regional arms race and dismantling the non-proliferation regime, making the world profoundly less safe. The stakes are far too high for guesswork, panic, blind faith. The world must avoid the twin traps of naive complacency and paranoid hysteria. The established facts are alarming enough to justify intense diplomatic pressure and a renewed push for intrusive go-anywhere, anytime inspections. But they do not yet meet the high bar required to justify actions with irreversible consequences. This is not a moment for passive observation. The public has a vital role. We must demand clarity from our leaders and demand evidence for their claims. We must support the painstaking, technical work of the IAEA and nonpartisan arms control experts. We must be critical consumers of information, questioning the source and motive of every dramatic headline and anonymous leak. The future of global security may well depend on our collective ability to stay calm, stay critical, stay informed. The time to ask the hard questions is now, before we find ourselves on a road from which there is no turning back. Share your thoughts below, subscribe for more uncovered truths, and watch our next deep dive to stay ahead of the facts.